On this episode of Locked On Angels, the Angels lose a game that they really should have won. Too many walks and a defense that panicked, and it cost them the game last night. And John and I have 4 big takeaways that we're going to be sharing with you today. I'm Mike, that's John, we're the Super Halo Bros, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day, even after a loss. We know you're still here. Thanks for being here. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube and leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
It's our 4th season as the host of Locked On Angels. We're here talking Angels baseball with you every Monday through Friday, every single weekday, however you want to slice it. We are here for you. On today's show, we're going to check in on Jack Kochanowicz, and how did he do in his start in AAA on Sunday night. We got some good information and some good conversation there. We're also wondering who in the heck is going to start for the Halos on Wednesday. That's let's see if my calculations are correct. Tomorrow, Mike, gotta make a decision. Now, who are we blaming for this loss on Monday night? Because I've seen a lot of blame going around, including somebody said you just had to bring up the clown show music on yesterday's show, and the Angels kind of put a clown show on in this one, Mike. They lost to the Mets on Monday night, 7-5. Let's get into our takeaways from this game.
Yeah, first takeaway is they gave this game away. Man, they led 5-2 entering the bottom of the 7th, and then gave up 3 runs in that inning, and then gave up 2 more runs in the bottom of the 8th inning. And the pitching staff just really struggled with hitting the strike zone, especially late in the game. They walked 6 Mets, and they had a leadoff walk in the 7th inning that always comes around to haunt you. And the Mets, John, to their credit, they played smart baseball. They moved the runners over. They made contact. That was the big thing. Contact was key for the Mets last night in scoring runs. And then they had some great plays defensively, including one great play at third base, throwing Mike Trout out at home. And then our hitters last night, they just, man, when they get down, they roll over and play dead.
It's all or nothing, right? We got to get all the runs back in this one swing, or it's, I'm just going to watch all 3 strikes hit the zone. And that's what happened in the top of the 9th against Edwin Diaz. Sean Noel struck out, Mike Trout struck out, Taylor Ward struck out looking. It's like, guys, are you going to try to come back in this one?
And listen, I know it's Edwin Diaz. I know that he's really good, but it just felt like uncompetitive at bats, and they just have this panic that happens, and they didn't look like that team up until the 7th inning. They were strong. The offense was strong. In fact, our second takeaway, John, is the Angels knocked out Kodai Senga early in this game. They got to him pretty quick, and it all started in the top of the 2nd inning with Logan O'Hoppe, didn't it?
Yeah, he had his 18th home run in this one, 107 off the bat, 401 feet the opposite way, the opposite way, Michael. A line drive home run. He hit off a very flat cutter from Kodai Senga. There was a lot of balls in play that looked like they were going out, and then they just kind of died at Citi Field. But it was O'Hoppe's that went out in this one. And over his last 18 games, listen to this, a 257 average, 307 on base, a 471 slugging, and a 778 OPS. That's a good sign. And he's got 18 home runs right now. I think he topped out at 20 last year. And so, and that's when he, started to sink, half August, September, that sort of time. He's kind of gone through that sink, and it seems like that batting stance change has really helped him. So it seems like O'Hoppe is on the upswing. Unfortunately, it just wasn't enough to get the job done because the Angels gave this one away.
Yeah, and the reason why every ball felt like it was going out is because the Mets fans who consider themselves East Coast fans who are, great at baseball, every fly ball was, right? It was ridiculous. Now, the Angels did get more in the top of the 3rd after a Rengifo infield single and a Mike Trout walk. Taylor Ward, who's been on a heater, hit his 25th double of the season, knocked in 2 runs. Then Joe Adell followed with an RBI single that knocked in Ward. It was an inside-out swing to right field. And again, they got to Senga really early. He threw 73 pitches in just 3 innings of work, gave up 4 hits, 4 runs, and he walked 4. It was the first time this season, John, that Senga allowed 4 earned runs in a game. So everything was looking great. And then everything kind of fell apart. And the reason why it was looking great is because the offense came through, but Tyler Anderson was on the mound. And that's our third takeaway. He's been really good against the Mets. He's been strong against this team, and he was strong to start. Now, in his career, he's got 6 starts. He's 2-3, 2.88 ERA, and 23 Ks. And John, he looked like that Tyler Anderson early on in this game.
Yeah, he looked like that guy because through the first 3 innings, he threw 34 pitches, just gave up 2 hits and 1 walk. No runs scored against him in those first 3. He struggled in the 4th inning, 24 pitches, gave up 2 walks, 1 hit, and 2 runs scored. Of course, he walked the first batter, and then Beatty hit that 2-run home run. And so that's what's going to do the damage against you by allowing those free passes. He followed that up with a 5-pitch 5th inning, which was very necessary. He got Juan Soto out 3 times on 3 pitches. Ward came out for the 6th inning, and he walked the leadoff batter. Sorry, not Ward.
Anderson. Sorry.
Anderson came out for the 6th inning, walked the leadoff batter, gave up a single to the next hitter. That got Alvarez over to 3rd. Then the Angels brought in Detmers, who gave up a single after a hit by pitch. Then he got Lindor to ground out into a force play, but a run scored. Juan Soto followed with hitting a 2-run single. And then Anderson finished by going 6 innings, gave up 4 runs on 4 hits, walked 5, and struck out 4. So things really fell apart there at the end, did not get an out in the 7th inning. And so it was Detmers who had to come in, and even he struggled to get through the heart of the order. But the problem is that it all was set up by Anderson facing the bottom of the order and not having a lot of success to get those first 2 outs there.
Now, 4th takeaway is if the Angels are going to make a run, this is the type of game that they need to win. They were up 4-0. They were up 5-2, up 3 runs in the late inning, and they just gave it away. And they got nickeled and dimed by the Mets. And a lot of it had to do with the Mets making contact. But John, the leadoff walk came around and scored every single time last night. And that's the biggest problem with this team. And the other big problem is when they get 2 outs, they just completely lose focus. And Tyler Anderson went into that 7th inning and he gave up a walk and then a single and just couldn't be the same guy that he was in the previous 6 innings. And so that's why he was yanked. It was a good decision, but then they bring in Reed Detmers because they're in trouble. They need some swings and misses. They got a lefty, and then they got Juan Soto coming up in between the 3rd batter. They have a right-handed batter next, and then they have Juan Soto. So, John, it was going to be Reed Detmers against these left-handed hitters, and unfortunately, Reed couldn't control his curveball. It came in too much, and he hit the left-handed hitter, and then Juan Soto came up and did what Juan Soto does. Now, they did have an open base, runners at 2nd and 3rd. So in that instance, there has been conversation like, do you walk Soto and do you face the polar bear? Do you face Alonso, which is a tough decision? I know that Alonso got out, that he struck out, but that's a tough decision because it is Pete Alonso, right?
Well, and I don't think that Lindor should have taken second base as easily as he did, Mike. He was over there at first base. I know he's got wheels. I know he can steal bags, but there was no resistance. There was nothing.
No throw over. There was no step off. Nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. There was no. It was like they weren't even paying attention to it, and then they couldn't even throw down because he was already at second by the time O'Hoppe had the ball. So that was unfortunate as well. But there was just a lot of sloppy stuff in this one. I know that Beatty made that impressive throw home to get Mike Trout out at home plate, and then Moncada gets the opportunity to do the same thing. He's kind of fallen over trying to get that ball and couldn't really get a grip on it, so he throws it wide. It goes off O'Hoppe's glove because he's unable to handle it, so that became an error on O'Hoppe. But that's another situation where, if Trout would have scored, they would have been up 6-2.
Yeah.
And then, I know this one ended 7-5, but, maybe it's a different game if you have this game a little bit further out of reach with a 6-2 lead as opposed to a 5-2 lead. But the Mets just were able to get it all back. And again, it just came down to too many walks, some sloppy defense. And then, Mike, I just don't know. I feel like since we lost Hunter Strickland to injury, it feels like the veteran leadership of the bullpen is gone because Kenley obviously is the veteran leader, but he's only going to come in at the end of a game when it's tied or it's a save situation. And so I feel like there's just a dynamic that's missing there. Also, Fermin's like 21, right?
Yeah.
22, 21. Like,
Yeah.
Can we stop throwing this guy to the wolves? I understand it's probably good for his development, but if you're trying to make a run and you're trying to win these games, which you should be, because all indications are the Angels themselves have said, oh, we want to make a playoff run. We want to do this. So stop throwing these guys to the wolves, especially if they just can't meet the moment. And it felt like the bullpen couldn't meet the moment. What do you think?
Who do you bring in if you're Ray Montgomery in that?
Well, that's what I'm saying is like, you've got Fermin, you've got Bachman, you've got Zephyr John, maybe Zephyr John. I don't know. But the fact is he hasn't been as sharp as he had been in the past.
Right.
But at the same time, you're missing, like, you DFA'd Hector Neris, which fine. He's not been very good since he left. You've lost Hunter Strickland. Connor Brogdon, I don't know. It seems like he's got the most experience and he's able to handle that sort of thing. But again, I just don't know. I don't know where their help comes from. I don't know if they're able to procure any like veteran relievers, but it seems like something's missing, and they're turning to these young guys a whole lot in these high leverage situations.
Well, I think that what we saw last night is an example of who the Angels have confidence in and who they don't. I think that's why Fermin was in there and Zephyr John wasn't, because Fermin has proven to be okay in those situations, although twice against the Phillies, he gave up big-time home runs to big-time players. Yeah. And then you're bringing him in again to face a really tough lineup in the Mets. So, I mean, he's got to figure out how to get through these situations, but it does feel like you are throwing a puppy to the wolves here, and you're, hey, go figure it out, kid, right? And then if it doesn't work out for you, we'll figure out a different way forward. But for me, he's got good stuff. I think he's got a future in that bullpen, and he's going to be somebody that we're going to be able to count on. But it just felt like the entire Angels bullpen, including Tyler Anderson's last inning, they just lost focus and for some reason could not hit the strike zone. Now, I know this loss was disappointing and frustrating, and it's so funny to watch the ebb and flow on social media with Angel fans like, oh, got to sell, sell, right? Like, and I get that some of the underlying metrics are not great, but if the Angels win the next two, right, then they win the series, and the conversation then flips back to, well, maybe, right? Like, and so that's where it's got to be game to game. It's got to be series to series. Now, if they lose tonight, then I'm leaning in that direction of, yeah, man, this is probably a good indication as to where this team is. But remember, they still have to play the Mariners and the Rangers. And I think that those will be the series where that determining factor of if they buy or if they sell should be determined, should be answered. And so I wouldn't let this game throw you off too much, even though it was a really frustrating game. And it was a game that they should have won.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You said the trade deadline is TBD and whether they're going to buy or sell. And coming up, we're going to talk about Wednesday's starter, which is TBD. We have no idea who's starting, but we're going to get into that conversation in our third segment, and we'll get to that in just a minute.
Summer is in full swing, so whether you're about golf or you're loving soccer, or maybe you're even following baseball, even when your favorite team breaks your heart, FanDuel is the best way to get in on all the action and to make it more exciting. With FanDuel, you can follow all the action, you can track your favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh. They have these daily promotions that keeps you engaged and allows you to bet in really fun ways. It's so easy to use. There's fast payouts, and it makes regular season baseball games feel like must-watch events. You can place a bet and then maybe put them together for a same-game parlay and watch that bet right into the ninth inning and win some money. FanDuel is going to help you do that. And if you're new to FanDuel, you can download the app right now and bet $5, and you'll win $150 if your first bet wins. So FanDuel is here to help you out and to hook you up. You can open the app today, or you can visit their website, fanduel.com/lockedon, to get started.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Jack Kochanowicz was optioned to AAA on July 11th, and this was after giving him a pretty decent amount of rope to figure things out and work on things and also stay in the major league rotation. Unfortunately, the Angels ended their streak of using the same 5 starters It was 98 games into the season. So that went out the window, but that's okay because it was time. It was time to let Kochanowicz go down to AAA in a less pressure environment and figure some things out. Now, having said that, and we'll talk about it in our next segment, they don't really have an answer for the starting five, the spot that's been left open from Jack Kochanowicz's demotion. But again, it is good that he was able to get that amount of time to work through things, but it just hadn't been working. So he went down to AAA on July 11th, had his first start on Sunday night. Mike, tell us how he did.
He went 5 innings, gave up 3 hits, 1 run, no earned runs, 4 walks, and 4 Ks. So here's what he threw compared to what he threw in 2024 and what he's been throwing this season. So in 2024, he threw a combination of a sinker, changeup, slider, a 4-seam, and a sweeper. Now, he threw the sinker in 2024 72% of the time.
Yeah.
The change almost 3% of the time. Slider 14% of the time. The 4-seam fastball 6% of the time. And then a sweeper almost 4.5% of the time. So that's 2024. This season, John, he's thrown the sinker just 47% of the time.
Wow.
That's almost 30 percentage points less than the year before. He's thrown the changeup almost 13% of the time. That's almost 10 percentage points higher than last year. The slider usage is about the same, 16%. He's thrown the 4-seam fastball 18% of the time in the majors, only 6% last year. And then his sweeper, about the same, about 1.5% more this season at 5.8. But John, his start on Sunday, his numbers were drastically different than they were in the major leagues. Why don't you share those?
Yeah, the first thing that you need to know is he didn't use the 4-seam fastball or the sweeper at all in that start. In fact, his primary pitch and the numbers that look similar are his sinker. In the start on Sunday, he threw the sinker 74% of the time, which is more in line with how much he was throwing it in 2024, 72% of the time. The changeup, he threw it more than he has in his career, 21%, and then he threw the slider just 5% of the time. So to summarize, sinker usage was back up to 2024 levels, didn't use the 4-seamer or the sweeper, and even though it was just one start, with the fact that he used these 3 pitches, it was back to his average ground ball percentage, which is 52.6%. And in 2024, he averaged 57%. So it's interesting that due to the pitches he cut and also increasing that sinker usage, he looked more like the guy from 2024. In fact, the fly ball percentage was back near his average of 21%. In 2024, it was 24%. The average exit velocity was also near 2 seasons ago, 89.2 in his start in AAA and 90.3 in 2024. So the miles per hour coming off the bat against Kochanowicz was near where he was in 2024. Lower launch angle, too, 6.5 compared to 7.3 in the majors this season. Last year, hitters had an average launch angle of 3.6 against Jack Kochanowicz, meaning they're getting a lot of stuff into the ground, Mike. It's not going very, very far. He gave up 7 home runs in 65 innings in 2024. This year, 16 home runs in 94 innings.
Wow.
And then one stat that's concerning from Sunday night is the walks. He walked 4 in his 5 innings, and those have been an issue for him this season. In fact, last year, he walked 10 in 65 innings. So something's different. Something changed. And even though he went back to that 2024 repertoire again for just one game, the walks were still an issue for him. In fact, this year, he's had 45 walks in 94 innings pitched. So a 4.31 walks per 9 this year compared to a 1.38 walks per 9 last year. So, Mike, as we discuss these numbers, as you look over the whole picture of what Jack Kochanowicz did on Sunday versus what he's done in the majors this season, and then what he did a year ago, what do these tell us? What do these numbers say?
Why did it change? Like, why are you throwing your sinker almost half the time that you were the year before? Like this year, you're throwing it 47% of the time. Last year, you threw it almost 75% of the time. Why is that changing? And then you went down to the minor leagues and you went back to throwing it like you did last year. I'm really curious as to why things would have changed for him. What were the coaches saying to him? What was the catcher calling? What was he thinking? Right? Like there's a lot that goes into that. And you said this when we talked about him getting demoted, is that a lot of this is just up here, right? It's in the head. And I just wonder if it was like, I'm going to try to throw a four seam. Obviously, the four seam, he threw it almost 20% of the time in the majors. He threw just 6% last year and didn't throw it at all in his last start. And it's that four seam fastball that was getting hit, and it's that four seam fastball that was getting rocked. And so that was my first question when I saw these numbers. And if you're on the audio side, you're missing out on the video side because John's giving me the, whenever you shut up, Mike, I've got a great point to make. So, John, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah. Everybody wanted him to be a strikeout guy, Mike. And so what pitches is he employing to do that? Changeup that he used 10% more this year to get guys to expect a sinker and swing through the changeup. A slider that, is around where it was last year, but still using that more. And the four seam. The four seam was to have a different look than the sinker. And, he had success throwing that four seam at the top of the zone most of the time. If he hit the zone, it was going to get crushed, right? Yeah. And so, all I've been saying all season long is if he wants to throw more strikeouts, he's got to throw that sinker down, that changeup down, throw that four seam above the zone at the letters, can't hit the zone because they're going to crush it, right? But this tells me what changed. And you want to know what changed is that everybody clamored for him to add some strikeouts to his game. And he has, hasn't he? He's added strikeouts to his game. But the fact is it's fundamentally changed who he is as a pitcher. Look, back, 3 seasons ago, I think it was our first season on Locked On Angels, my favorite thing in the world was pitch efficiency. I want to see guys going 7 innings because I want to see them I want them to rest the bullpen. I want them to get through a regular start. I know that everybody goes like 6 innings now, 5 innings now. And when Kochanowicz was rolling in 2024, Mike, there was a few times he could have had a complete game, right? And so what's changed? Well, it's the pitch efficiency because you throw one sinker, you get a guy to ground out. You want to strike somebody out, you got to throw at least 3 pitches. And, according to these numbers, the way I look at it is everybody, including fans and maybe even the coaching, because apparently the coaching wanted him to do something different too. They tried to add a strikeout to his game. It can be there, but you're not getting a more efficient pitcher. You're not getting the best version of Jack Kochanowicz. And I think that's where things went wrong. So that's my sarcastic face. That was the reason for my sarcastic face earlier.
That's a great point. And so then the big question is, are they going to let Jack be Jack when he comes back to the major leagues? Yeah. Are they going to let him continue to be who he was in 2024? The problem with him, though, is his location. And it might be that he's throwing new pitches, and that's why he's walking a lot of guys. But Jack Kochanowicz is a guy that's going to give up 2 to 3 runs and 4 to 5 hits and probably go 6-7 innings. And that's what you want from this guy. That's what he did last year. It's what he started to do this year. But then he had a lot of games where he was just getting hit to death. They were constantly making contact. And it was because he was missing the zone, and not just with pitches he was learning, but pitches that he has confidence in, the sinker. But you'll notice in the stats, he wasn't throwing the sinker as much. And so maybe that's why he's not been as effective. And maybe that's why he's been missing the zone. All of this to say, you got to let Jack be Jack, let him be the pitcher that he is, and not try to make him into something that he's not. And then Jack Kochanowicz has to figure out how he's going to hit the zone and stay in the zone and not lose control of the pitches that he has confidence in.
Yeah, I think it's going to take some time to work that control back into his game because he's certainly capable of it. Like you said, a 1.38 walks per 9 just 1 year ago. And I know that was a smaller window because it was 65 innings. And this year he's had 94 innings. But again, I don't think we've had the same Jack Kochanowicz that we had in 2024. Because again, people wanted him to change up his repertoire. People wanted him to add some strikeouts to his game. And look, I said this in spring training. I said, here's why you need to add strikeouts to your game. Because remember, he had an at-bat against Jose Ramirez really early on. I think it was spring training, or maybe it was even that first Guardian series at home. But he faced Jose Ramirez and he made him work. It was like a 12-pitch at bat, right? And so, yeah, sometimes that's going to happen. And so you really have to decide what's the most effective version of Jack K. Is it the sinker ball guy who can, reduce the walks and the strikeouts? And really, what do you want out of this guy? That's the big question the Angels have to ask themselves as they continue to let Jack Kochanowicz get some starts in AAA.
Having a reliable business line is so important, and that's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system that helps streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or on your computer. If you've ever had to deal with 2 phones, one's a business phone, one's a personal phone, OpenPhone solves that problem instantly. In fact, your whole team can share one number and respond to customers in a shared inbox, so there's no more wondering who's going to handle this call, who's going to handle this situation. And they have an AI agent that handles after-hour calls, answers commonly asked questions, and captures leads so that you never miss a customer again. And OpenPhone is offering our everydayers of Locked On Angels 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. That's openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. And if you have an existing number already with another service, OpenPhone is going to port that over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers.
So who's going to get the start for the Angels on the mound on Wednesday against the Mets? We haven't thought that far ahead, right? Trademark. So as of this recording, it's still TBD, but according to the OC Register, Jeff Fletcher does a great job of covering the Angels. Ray Montgomery said one choice would be to do some version of the bullpen game that they did on Friday night. Carson Fulmer, Jake Eder, they could also be options. They can pitch around 5 innings or so. If they want to pull somebody from AAA, Jeff said that the most likely choice could be Victor Medeiros. He's got a 4 ERA at Salt Lake. He gave up 7 hits and issued 3 walks in 4 innings on Friday in AAA. Another name mentioned that we haven't seen yet is George Clausen. He took a no-hitter into the 6th inning Friday at AA. He does have a 5.86 ERA at AA, but he has had some injuries. He was hit in the head with a line drive, but in his last 2 starts, he's allowed 1 run and 3 hits in 10 2/3 innings with 16 strikeouts. So there's a couple of options there. What else did Montgomery have to say, Mike?
Yeah, he mentioned Ryan Johnson, and that name has come up a couple of times as somebody that could come up and fill the spot. I know one of our everydayers is like, hey, bring him up. We'd love to see Ryan Johnson.
Bring him up.
In Class A this year, he's been stretched out as a starter, has a 1.99 ERA. But Jeff Fletcher tweeted yesterday that Ryan Johnson has been temporarily shut down as a workload fatigue thing at high A. He's not hurt, so don't worry about that. At least that's what they're telling us. Before this announcement, Ray Montgomery spoke about Ryan Johnson and said, hey, given what we've done with him and we've stretched him back out, it's probably best for him to stay where he's at and continue to do what he's doing. And Jeff Fletcher also tweeted that Caden Dana is returning to the AAA rotation this week. He was out with fatigue, but he wouldn't be an option because they're going to build him back up again. And then Chase Silseth was another name that is potentially a good starter for the Angels, at least to be a spot starter, but sounds like they're going to bring him back and he's going to move back to a reliever role. So there's a lot of
in
AAA. Yes, there's a lot of issues up in the air. No really clear answer. John, what do you think the best move is for the Halos on Wednesday?
I have always wanted to see Victor Medeiros get a start because every time he's come to the big leagues, it's always been out of the bullpen as a reliever. Funny, nobody complained about Medeiros getting called up and down 1,000 times. Why is this starter pitching out of the bullpen for the Angels?
Because he did somewhat good, and so it wasn't easy. He was
never good. That's my problem with it.
Not as bad as the other guys, I guess.
He's never been good out of the bullpen for the Angels at the major league level because they keep putting him in the bullpen. The guy is a starter. If anybody should have been complaining, it should have been 3 years ago when they brought Victor Medeiros up and down, and they've done it for the last 3 years. The guy stunk out of the bullpen, and so he finally looked good when he came up this year.
Yeah.
But the fact is, he's never had a start. He's never been able to start in the majors. And I think he should. I think that he's had success as a starter in the minor leagues. Again, he's got a 4 ERA right now at Salt Lake, but Salt Lake is a hitter-friendly league. True. And so give him a chance at the major league level. Nobody's seen him as a starter before. And so it's not like there's a book out on him. So give him a chance. And it's a spot start, Mike. These things happen. These things happen over the course of 162 games. Give the guy a chance to start. And if it doesn't work out, then bring in Carson Fulmer, bring in Jake Eater, give Medeiros the chance to start the game. And if you need to pivot, you got your options to pivot. But I think this, and it's my opinion, I don't know if it's the best thing to do. I don't know if it's the right thing to do, but the fact is you're facing Sean Manaea, who's coming back from the injured list. He's been out all season long. You have the chance to do what you did yesterday against Kodai Senga. You've got Frankie Montas tonight. You've got Sean Manaea tomorrow. Well, they got a lot of A's on this team. They got Paul Blackburn too.
That's why they're beating us, right?
Yeah, that's why they win. They got Paul Blackburn, who was an A as well. So that's kind of funny. Anyway, Starling Marte, also an A. The fact is, I think that you give Victor Medeiros a shot. What do you think they should do?
Get a starter. Bring somebody up and have him start. Don't do a bullpen game again. I think that's just it's tough on this bullpen, and you need to rely on your bullpen if your starter doesn't make it through 5 innings, 6 innings. Even last night, right? You had a guy going to the 7th inning. You need to rely on your bullpen to get you to the later innings. They couldn't do it last night. So don't ask your bullpen to do more than what they are already doing, and they've already shown that they're struggling right now with doing what you're asking them to do. So get a Victor Medeiros, right? And then if he can't do it, you've got 2 guys who can go in long relief, and then let them kind of eat it. If it ends up being a really bad game, let Jake Eater eat it. Let Carson Fulmer eat it, right? That's why they're there. So don't throw a bullpen game, or do what you did last year with Carson Fulmer. He went 4 innings, right? He had a couple of starts where he went 4 innings and was pretty good. He's already on your roster. So use him instead of having multiple guys start with Zephyr John. That feels so silly. It feels so dumb. I get that they won the game, but they won the game because the offense came through, and they need a win. They need a win today. And they gotta get a win. And then they need a win on Wednesday. They need to win this series. And so you need to go out there confident that whoever you're putting out there is going to give you a chance to win.
What if they traded Luis Rengifo, Kevin Newman, Lamont Wade Jr., and maybe Taylor Ward for Paul Skeens? Do you think that they could go for that? Do you think
the Pirates will be in on that one? Yeah.
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Angels so that you don't miss any of the Angels content that we have for you. That includes the best Angels postcast in the biz with Gavin Carlson. He's live after every final out of every game, win or lose. You get to celebrate with him, or you get to be in misery with him. Get all the best Angel content right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram, whether you're watching or listening. Come on over to today's show on YouTube, get in the comments section. Here's a question. Should they have run Tyler Anderson out for the 7th inning? Mr. Montgomery is Mr. by the book, so it was the 3rd time through the order. Would it have been better to give Detmers a clean inning? I don't know. Maybe you guys have the answer, so share that in the comments. Mike, what do we have on deck for Wednesday's show?
Well, how are the Angel players reacting to the trade rumors, especially when it includes their name? We're going to share some of their reactions, including Taylor Ward's and others, tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right, we're looking forward to that conversation, and we're looking forward to you coming back and joining us. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Wednesday.
We'll trade you Squid and Irvin Santana
right,
for Ken Griffey Jr. What do you think?
It sounds good to me.